Henry Ford, American industrialist, founder of the Ford Motor Company, and probably one of history's most horrible bosses. Many of us learned that Henry Ford was the guy who made the Model T and invented the assembly line. Fun fact, he did not invent it. That was Ransom E. Olds. Ford just tweaked it. And what you also may not know is that Ford had a service department, and I'm not talking about fixing cars here. This notorious private police force, headed by Harry Bennett, was made up of 1,000 men, a majority of whom were former convicts, athletes, cops, and gang members. The purpose of the service department was to control the growing unrest of Ford's workforce and suppress the emerging labor unions. Getting this job done sometimes meant beating assembly line workers for going too slow or complaining about working conditions. Ford was also praised for doubling the pay rate of most of his workers, but the other half of that story is that this pay increase came with conditions. For example, gambling and drinking were not allowed. Men who were married to women who worked outside the home did not qualify for this pay increase. And immigrants were required to attend Ford's English school to become Americanized. Ford's social department was made up of 50 investigators and staff whose job it was to visit the employees' homes and ensure that they were following these standards and doing things the American way. How did this kind of workplace and others like it influence the businesses and people leaders that came after Henry Ford? Did the commonality of these kinds of working conditions desensitize us and make it easier for this kinds of treatment to echo into the workplaces and leadership styles of future generations? These are the questions we will examine in the upcoming documentary, The History of Work. Toxic workplaces, bad bosses. They seem to be the standard these days, but why? Are we supposed to hate our jobs? Are we supposed to be bad bosses? Is there room for joy at work? Why do we resist that concept? Why do we work? How do we work? What is our relationship to work, and how did it even get that way? When it comes to work culture, leadership styles, and crafting a different kind of work experience, does history matter? Would understanding the workplaces of the past help us to create something different in the future? Welcome to the History of Work, how the past has shaped the toxic workplaces of today. This documentary is about how centuries of history have shaped the workplaces of America, leading us to the corporate cultures that we experience right now. At the heart of this story is how the people and systems in power have repeatedly driven us from our natural selves and forced us into consumerism, individualism, and workaholism for the monetary gain of those at the top, all while leading us to believe it's good for us. These kinds of agendas have led to the extraction of our own humanity, not just from our workplaces, but from our lives. This goes far beyond how we, as individuals, learned about leadership from models in our childhoods like our teachers and our family. It goes much deeper than that. Asking these questions about how toxic workplaces are so prevalent today leads to answers that predate all of us. This documentary will be exploring how religion and politics and big business have forged today's workplaces. We'll tackle uncomfortable questions like, what does slavery have to do with today's corporate culture and how we manage people in the 21st century? We will explore eras from the Great Depression to the Great Resignation and some of the in-betweens. Our workplaces are evolving right now. How can we steer them in the right direction? I believe we can't get to a better tomorrow without understanding yesterday. The time for this curiosity and understanding is now. Welcome to the History of Work.